I'm really excited for this one. Really honored to be talking to our next guest, a man of many talents. NFL on Fox's own Joe Davis, play-by-play for the NFL, for Fox's MLB coverage, for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like I said, a guy who does it all. Joe Davis, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, you got it, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I doubt I'm as excited as you are getting to cover one of the best matchups of week one, which let's jump right into it. You've got the call for San Francisco and Pittsburgh, Steelers and 49ers, and it's very rare to have something so topical happen. Literally, as we're setting up to do this interview, the 49ers end Nick Bosa's holdout, signing him to a massive contract extension, which I assume means we'll be seeing him in uniform for this matchup on Sunday. I'm curious, as the guy who has to call this game, and I've seen, you put together a board, so you've got your players straight and you know who you're talking about and you know what to look at. When you hear news like this, like, does it change your preparation? Like, did you have the Nick Bosa tag somewhere else and now you put it on the board? Like, how does it change your job when something like this happens kind of last minute?
Yeah, I guess I've probably been a little bit like the Steelers have, where they're like, you're going to plan on him playing, and if he doesn't, you figure it out. I've kind of been planning on them figuring the deal out and him being in there, and especially, Dave, with the position he plays, where even if this had gone another couple days, I think there's still a chance that we would have seen him Sunday, because you know what the job is for him. It's put your hand in the ground and go get the quarterback. And even if there was a little bit more to it than that, which we know there is, he's been there a while. This isn't anything new to him. So I was kind of figuring, the deal had to get done, and I was figuring that it would, and it would need a ton of time before Sunday for him to make an impact Sunday.
This is one of those, and like I said, this is one of the most interesting matchups of week one. And it's interesting because it's obviously it's two storied franchises. It's two fantastic and gigantic fan bases. But on top of that, it's a dominant NFC team against what seems to be an up and coming AFC team with Kenny Pickett in year two. I'm curious. We know the 49ers are good. I mean, we know that they've been regulars deep in the NFC playoffs. So how much, knowing the talent that they already have, how much does Nick Bosa's presence, at least in some sort of role in this game, affect your opinion of what we might see on Sunday?
Yeah, I think that it's huge. I mean, if there's any guy that can take the number one defense in the NFL, make it completely different when he's in there versus when he's not, it's the defensive player of the year in Bosa. So, yeah, still really good, still really talented. Probably would have been favored even without Bosa on Sunday, but I think this makes them, and not just Sunday, but period, as scary of a team as there is certainly in the NFC.
Obviously, the teams are really interesting. Like I said, it's 11 combined Super Bowls. It's about as good as it gets from a legacy standpoint. But the personalities are really great too. And you guys heading into this matchup, you get to meet with both Kyle Shanahan and Mike Tomlin. I'm curious. I think it's so fascinating the way that y'all get to pick these people's brains individually when you get to town on a Friday or a Saturday. Kind of see where their head's at, getting to meet with them in these production sit downs. Knowing that and knowing the track record of these guys, what are you as a broadcaster curious to ask Mike Tomlin and Kyle Shanahan about when you get a chance?
Well, one of the things that I can think of with Mike Tomlin is he's talked a lot about this week how, so on defense, they expect they're going to be good, but it's with a bunch of new pieces, entirely new inside linebacker room, several new DBs, and the depth chart came out, and there are a bunch of ors on there. Or. So they're not committing to starters at several different spots. And his point was, this is a matchup league at this point, and we've got to have the depth and the versatility in depth to be able to match up with teams like this. And so one of my big questions for him is, with that being the case, what do those matchups look like? If specific matchups are going to tell the story for you, as you say, who are you putting on George Kittle if he's healthy enough to play? How do you handle Christian McCaffrey? Because the Steelers have all these new pieces, and they feel like it makes them a little more versatile in what they can cover defensively. But what does that look like week one against a team that's going to test you matching up like just about no other?
Put you on the spot a little bit. I apologize for that. But, I mean, you're mentioning, I think that's what makes the Steelers so interesting heading into this season is there's so many young names on this team that maybe they're not household names right now. They could be by the end of Sunday. If we don't include Kenny Pickett, because I think, most people know the quarterback, but if we don't include Kenny Pickett, who is a young Steeler that you personally are curious to see?
I think it's going to be cool to see Joey Porter Jr., another Joey Porter wearing a Steelers uniform. And there's a chance he's one of those guys that's in the or category, but there's a good chance that he takes the snaps with the ones at outside corner and Patrick Peterson winds up playing inside. So, what a challenge right away for a rookie corner defending a guy like Brandon Ayuk on the outside, Juwan Jennings, the size he has. So certainly interested to see how he factors into things already in Pittsburgh.
On the flip side of that, like I said, it goes without saying, I think the vast majority of us are penciling the Niners into the playoff conversation, into the Super Bowl conversation, which is a crazy thing to say about a team that doesn't have a completely settled quarterback situation. What are you expecting to see, or what do you hope to see from Brock Purdy, who, again, has only started a handful of games in this league, and on top of that is coming off of a major injury to his throwing arm? What are you hoping to see, or what should the expectation be? Because I do think it's incredibly interesting that a team with such an unproven quarterback is looked at as such a lock to make a deep run in this season.
Yeah, I think that they would probably like to disagree with you, Dave, and they would like to say that it is settled, that Brock Purdy is their guy and he's ready to go. And we'll see. It was, as you said, a pretty small sample that we saw last year, but an impressive small sample from Brock Purdy, enough so that they obviously move on from Trey Lance. Sam Darnold comes in as the backup, and Purdy, after 5 regular season starts, after the postseason run, the elbow surgery, and a quick turnaround from that, we're talking 6 months post-surgery, is going to be there. And it's a really fascinating dynamic in that this is a Super Bowl ready roster. And it's funny, this is the same conversation we were having week 1 about the Niners last year. A Super Bowl ready roster with a quarterback that they feel good about, but you can't say you're completely convinced of. Last year it was Trey Lance that we were talking about as that guy. This year it's Brock Purdy, but with the same star-studded cast around him.
I think that's what makes the Niners perennially interesting is, it's such a quarterback league, but the Niners are your answer to, well, what if you had everything else? And I'm sure Kyle Shanahan would like to see things go a little bit differently at the quarterback position this year. I'm going to leave you off just with this. My own curiosity, like I said at the top of the interview, you are a man of so many duties and so many talents. I'm curious. So you're calling week 1 here, Niners Steelers, but you also have the most important time in the baseball season on your plate right now, whether it's the Dodgers or whether it's the MLB playoffs coming up here in a month or so. Can you take us inside how you juggle all this stuff? If you've got to worry about 2 different rosters with 100 players on it for a football game, how are you doing that at the same time while you're keeping the Dodgers bullpen straight? How do you juggle all of this information?
I'm lucky this week, Dave. I don't have any Dodger games this week. I'm not on the road trip through Miami and DC, so I'm able to focus on football this week. But to give you a little better example of what it normally is like, I'll do the game Sunday in Pittsburgh. Monday and Tuesday next week, I'll be on Dodger games, and obviously the prep that comes during the day, getting ready for those games that night. Wednesday, I'll fly to Baltimore for Orioles-Rays on Thursday. Friday, we'll fly to Tampa and have Bucks and Bears next weekend, only to start it all over again the next day back at Dodger Stadium. So it is a lot this time of year, but it's pretty easy to say, hey, as soon as it starts feeling like a lot, or the prep stacks up, it's very easy for me to take a step back and just think about how lucky I am and how I know there are a million people that would trade places to be, to have this long list of work to do, including myself of 5 years ago, of 20 years ago. I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted to.